How to induct new talent effectively. Okay, so the first thing, and you might want to take notes here, but these are just bullet points. The first thing is, it's not when the induction starts that you need to start paying attention. Actually, it's prior to that. And when you are looking at having the right induction, you have to have the right sequence because that feeds into this particular stage. And what I mean by that is, if you think about it, typically, how does it work in businesses? Very typically, you will have a job ad, then the person gets hired, then you create that induction plan, and then hopefully then there's also a set of KPIs that get created for this new hire, right? That's a very typical way of looking at the whole process of hiring the talent and then inducting them and then setting the KPIs. Now, this is actually a wrong sequence and results in therefore the wrong induction and wrong performance as well, many times. The right sequence here really is actually, even before you get the job ad out, you have to have the KPIs in place. Then on the basis of those KPIs, you identify what are the KSAs, and KSA stands for knowledge, skills, and attitudes. You define that. That's what helps you create the job description because now you know what are the deliverables for this position and what therefore are the attributes, skills, and knowledge bits that you're looking for in the right candidate. Once the person comes on board, then you're starting off with the induction plan, right? To give them that structure, clarity as to what they need to do in the first few days. So please make a proper note of this because if you've got the sequence wrong, then the chances of having that effective induction or having that superstar on board also reduces massively, okay? Now, on the academy, there is a whole simple training, a very short training actually, on how to identify the KPIs for sales position and also for non-sales position. I would highly advocate that please look at that if you need some input on how to define KPIs and then do the job ad and then move on to induction, right? So it's sitting under hiring mastery. Now, looking at the other points, now once you have got the right sequence, then the second thing that you're looking at, I'm moving on to induction now, right, is 80-20. And what I mean by that is, look, when you create a set of KPIs, I'm sure you would agree that for every position, there is one thing which is absolutely non-negotiable. That is the biggest contributor towards the performance, right? Even if it's a non-sales position. So think about and force yourself to think like that, saying, what is that one most important thing that this person has to deliver, which determines that they are the A players? If they can do other bits, that's amazing. But what's that one thing? And that's 80-20 thinking, right? Which I'm hoping everybody's familiar. If not, please drop in the chat box and team can clarify. So that should be your way of thinking. Now, once you identify that this is the one deliverable which is non-negotiable for this person to be successful in this position, then you're very clearly, once again, rechecking from your KPI sheet that you did earlier and writing down clear success metrics. How would you know at the end of a certain period that this person was successful in delivering that outcome? And if it's all fuzzy and ambiguous and more of feeling based, then yeah, broadly there is this, for example, you might say, okay, there's a new person that I've hired. Okay, there's someone who needs to mute the voice there. So if you have said, for example, that there should be improvement in the retention of employees, right? You're getting a HR manager on board. How would you measure that in a certain slice of time that there was an improvement in retention? Or even if it's culture, is it NPS survey that needs to be done? What is the measurable? Force yourself to come up with a measure because that helps the new hire and that helps you be decisive and objective. Otherwise, it's all like, yeah, I think, yeah, no, you know what, we need to keep doing this. And I just dislike it when there is so much of just subjectivity sitting in that measure. So success metric, once you've identified the success metric, that outcome or that output, you need to work backwards and then define what is the input. So let me give you an example. Imagine you've hired a sales manager, right? This sales manager is accountable for obviously bringing in new revenue from new accounts. Now, that's the most important. Then it could be relationship with the key existing accounts. It could be, attending certain events or networking stuff, or maybe making some social media posts, all that stuff that, typical sales position might have. But in this, the most important thing is that they should be able to generate new revenue. Now, when you're creating induction, it's generally speaking, for most of the businesses, it's not very easy to create that new revenue in the first month itself, right? So it could be that you're working backwards and saying, actually, to know that the person has got the right skill set. We're looking for this person to generate, say, X number of appointments. Imagine 10 appointments in the first 2 months is what I'm really after from this person, right? And then you break it down, saying the first month I'm looking at 4 qualified appointments, just as an example. Now, that is the deliverable. You've defined it very clearly because that leads to the overall revenue. Once that's clear, then you work backwards and say, okay, fine, for them to generate 4 qualified appointments in the first month, what is it that they need to know? Now, this is a very, very key point. What I have seen very typically happens is a new person comes on board and there is this detailed induction starting from obviously company philosophy and the value systems, which is absolutely important, to everything, HR, legal, IT, product description, our clients, all the stuff. And for me, this is like you going for a party and there's a huge buffet and you're trying to eat everything. The person is not going to digest or assimilate and is just overwhelmed with all this information that's sitting there, while you are feeling that you are productively keeping the person busy because you've defined this beautiful induction for them. And I'm asking you to challenge that approach and that thinking and saying, no, actually, I want to test this talent as soon as possible, whether they are good or not. And therefore, I have to focus on the highest deliverable, the most important deliverable. How will I measure the success? And then I work backwards to see what do they need to know. Now, in this case, to generate 4 qualified appointments, they don't need to know the whole thing. Yes, they need to know our values, how we work, what the company is all about, in short, but then what do they need to know just for that bit? And which is what takes me to the next point, and really important. And I would want you guys to type in, and don't worry, just be honest. Nobody's judging here anyone. It's the safest environment you can be. But maybe think for yourself, but jot this down in the chat box, saying, how long is your typical induction? Typical induction, right? In your organization, in your business, how long is it? Just type that in if you're cool to share that with me. And let me just have a look. So what are we saying? 2 weeks, need to put one in place. Yeah, absolutely. 6 months, sometimes it could be 6 months. Interesting, right? So look, whatever it is, it has been, but now let's focus on what it should be. The induction you need to think of induction in days and not weeks, for sure, right? Because that's just a wasted time and resource at multiple levels in the business. If you're clear about the topmost deliverable and you've broken it down into that step, and then you're working backwards to see what does this person need to know, I promise you, and I can discuss this with any business, you don't need weeks. You might need 3 days or 5 days max, but 3 days is my beautiful number, okay? Think like that, because you want to start seeing the evidence of success, even if those are baby steps in the right direction. The other thing which I've mentioned here is that whenever possible, in fact, that should be the mandate for your HR team. And if you're the one who's looking at the start of the new hires, Wednesday should be the day when you're starting your new hires. I've said this many times before as well. People, again, it's just the way of thinking, right? Monday. Yeah, we're starting the new person on Monday. Monday is busy for you. Monday is busy for the entire business. Now, this new person is coming in, not getting the right kind of time, and you think, oh yeah, you know what, start shadowing these people, and that's the way to induct. That's not the way to induct, because you're disturbing the actual core person who's already there, and the new hire is also lost. So think strategically about this. Wednesday is the day. Why? Because the week feels short, right? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, if you think about it. So the new hire is excited, the weekend is there, and then Monday they start fresh, properly, like actually focusing on their deliverables. And you and your team have got more time to actually start giving that right input to the new hire as well. And therefore, 3-day induction plan is beautiful. Seriously, start compressing your induction. Start compressing your induction, because you want the person to start working with the right context, which is my point, straight after 1 to 10 rating review. Now, what that means is, there's another good practice that we have in our businesses, is that at the end of the induction plan, which, remember, the first one is only 3 days ideally, on Friday afternoon or late afternoon, you sit down with the person, or the line manager sits down with the new hire. And because you've got an induction plan, as I've written there, it's a structured plan. And there is a template that's available on the Academy under downloads, under management, which is induction template, where you have day 1, day 2, day 3. and then you have morning slots, you have afternoon slots, and you've mapped out everything in detail, right? So you sit down with the new hire and you say, okay, so how has your induction been? Yep, pretty good, really good. Okay, let's go through this one by one. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate yourself in terms of your understanding and capability of now delivering? And 10 being high, and the person rates anything which is below 8, because remember I've told you 7 is a polite 5. Anything which is below 8, you know that they need a quick kind of, input. So I generally like to do review pretty much Friday afternoon, right? So around 2:30. So you have few hours to actually bolster or strengthen that bit where they might not be very strong. But do that 1 to 10 review rather than saying, oh, are you okay with this? And they'll be like, yeah, that's okay. But force them to rate, because that's what gives you a good sense of where they're very confident, where they are, I need a little bit more input, right? So now you are further bolstering if required, and you know that the person understands the fundamentals of the first important deliverable, and which is the next point then. And then pretty much from next week onwards, Monday onwards, they are working on that top deliverable. They're cracking on, whether it's about making phone calls or, being on LinkedIn or looking for those new opportunities, whatever that is, depending on what the role is, you want them to start working. And look, I say this, that, you can give someone a lot of content, right? Um, but if there is no context, it doesn't land well. What I mean by that is in the first 3 days, you've given them lots of content. They have not practically started. But when they start practically, that's when they will go back and start referencing that first 3 day content and say, okay, I get it. Okay, now this is what I have to do. So now there is content and context. They're working with that. They're fine-tuning their skill set. And obviously, you're having your weekly or midweek reviews with them to ensure that they are absolutely clear and having a good pace. And as I think a few of you mentioned, how they start in the beginning pretty much sets the tone for that talent. And I've seen this many, many, many times. You do it in a professional, structured way, with a good pace, good rigor. They get it that this is how this business works. You ask them to shadow, they're kind of sitting there trying to look busy and, trying to get your attention. There's no focus, there's no clarity. And you know what? That is the pace that they kind of get used to. And then you wonder, saying, why people are not performing, what's going on? Or you start blaming yourself, saying, oh, you know what, I should have given them more time. And then they're just carrying on with that suboptimality, and nobody wants that. So build context ASAP. You want to know, you want to get the evidence of success. That is so, so critical. Now, this point, which is divide to multiply, and so strategic and so powerful. And not many people think of induction like this. Induction for them is at the start of the employment, is like, I need to tell them everything. Wherein the way I like to see is that induction is done in parts. You have to divide the induction in parts to actually multiply the results. So for example, going back to the top deliverable, once the person is consistently delivering on that, could take them a month, could take them 2 months, could take them 3 months, doesn't matter. Remember, it's 80-20. You're already getting the best impact from this talent. Once they are there, and you position it to them, saying, look, I want to see your performance at least for these many periods, could be weeks or months. Once it's there, then we are going to raise your game to the next level, and you will get into phase 2 of induction. This is where we are going to train you on XYZ, and then this is the kind of output that we're expecting from you, right? Is that okay? And then they're like, yeah, that's okay. And this is an important point, positioning the next phase of induction, because you don't want them to settle and say, yeah, that's it, this is what I have to do. They know that they're working. And once they show the success, they'll be moving on to the second phase of induction. And that is the concept of divide to multiply. That is how you embed the right performance at the right levels, and at the same time you create the stretch. And a point comes maybe with phase 3 of induction or phase 4 of induction, where you realize, now this person's capability is reaching its max, and it's fine. They are on top of their game, and we don't need to stretch them further, at least for the time being. Okay. Really, really beautiful point here, and it works gorgeously if you can really put this in your head and make it part of your induction. So remember, it's over a period. Induction is not just on the first few days or weeks the way you've been doing. It's over a period. And for me, this is the key point, that look, and I think like that. So it's the allocation of resources, right? When you're getting a new hire, it's not just the new talent. It does impact you. it does impact your senior management team and the wider team, because everyone has to give time to this person. And you want to establish as quickly as possible if this is worth investing time and efforts or not. Okay. And that's the reason that I'm saying that compress your induction. Be very clear what this person needs to deliver so you can start seeing the evidence of success. So you can then choose to invest more time and efforts in stages to make sure that this person continues to be your A player. Otherwise, if that's not the case, then it's just about being decisive and saying, yeah, you know what? It's okay. We need to go back to the hiring board. We need to go back to looking at our, recruitment process, because you need to make sure that your talent density in the organization is only increasing, because that's the best thing that you can provide to your team members.